guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 241. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I got some very good work done on my Kroot Army. At least it feels like I got good work done. It didn't add up to a lot of points added to the army, but it's really hard to add a lot of points to the army. But you know, it's not hard to add is EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is full of all sorts of great hobby goodies. We got basing cork, we got texture paste, we got paints, we got brushes, we got wet palettes, we got water slide decals, we got basing toppers and bits, and we also have terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. Come celebrate Orktober with us and head on down to the Orc Rodeo, a whimsical assortment of high-octane hijinks. This set includes a series of walls and barricades that not only create a coliseum of chaos, but also fits in with our previous Orky wall terrains. Then there are the Goblin game carts, a series of mobile orc entertainments pulled along by an orcified food truck, literally dripping with some good orc rub. Rounding out this set are the 3 amigos, some brave goblins riding their violently bucking steeds. All this terrain was designed by us and is available at EonsOfBattle.com. My Kroot Army has definitely been on the back burner for a little while now. The models have been sitting on my desk. Some of them are primed, like zenithalled, ready to rock and roll, but recently I finally cracked some of these guys out, and I very nearly finished some more Krootox Riders. This is my second squad of Krootox Riders, one of my favorite things in the Kroot range. Also, you'll notice these guys are actually very different from one another, and that is because one of these guys is the old Kroot model, and one of these guys is the new one. And even though they're pretty different, with the old one being like 25% smaller, I've cheated it up on a much bigger base, and I feel like they still work really well together. And it really makes me happy to have this old model in my brand new army and have it look this good. These guys, I bought one of these guys from the Games Workshop web store. It is in beautiful failcast resin. And I remember I got one in the mail, and the casting was really rough. And so I sent Games Workshop an email saying that it was bad, and they sent me another one. I did manage to fix up the first one, so I guess I kind of lied. But in my defense, I did have to not use some of the bits, and I just had to invent it and make it work. And so I got a second one from Games Workshop. Now they don't really do a lot of failcast resin, which is probably for the best because it was really remarkably bad. When failcast resin first launched, they had so many bubbles. The theory of why it was so bad is they took their original spin cast molds and just started casting resin in them. And so that's why there would be so many bubbles. And the gates, the resin gates, no other company does this. I don't understand why. Almost every company I buy resin minis from are immaculate. They are perfect. But Games Workshop is so remarkably bad at it. They even have Forge rolled, which is not called Forge rolled anymore, and it's all been rolled into Warhammer. But Forge rolled resin was decent. It was okay. It was acceptable quality compared to failcast resin. But they would glue little triangles of plastic all over their miniatures in order to help the resin flow where it needed to go. But no other company does it that way. No one else needs to get the cast to actually come out of the mold. But it was a labor of love. But now I have this incredibly unique model to add to my Kroot collection. Krootox Riders are 30 points in game. So this big old sentinel-sized monstrosity is a very small unit. A little bit more expensive than a single Terminator. I guess a fair bit. I think Terminators are 18 points in game. So I didn't get a lot of models, a lot of points added to my collection, but I feel like I got some good models added. I know Sean keeps bringing up, because we're doing these armies in tandem. We're both building new 40k armies for ourselves. I'm doing the Kroot Tau, and Sean is doing the Emperor's Children. And Sean has been making some good progress, getting models done, getting models painted. Meanwhile, my Kroot army has been languishing, but languish no more. I finally have Some new models, very nearly done. The only thing left is a little bit of touching up on the leather and a little bit of touching up on the metal. And there's one thing that I'm trying to work on for my Kroot, and that is the bases. So these are the bases just with my Zenithal and the plants picked out. I do a Zenithal of Army Painter Fur Brown, which is a very reddish brown. I blast that all over, and then I spray a little bit of Space Dust, which is a very light yellow color, also an Army Painter, from above. And so that is the ground on these guys currently. I've been trying out different materials to try to get like a desert look, but my models are very mid-tone with some bright saturated colors. And it's tricky to get a good base that really complements the models. I feel like since the models are a little bit lighter, I want to go dark, but then dark doesn't quite make sense for the desert. But I definitely don't want to go light and have the base be a little bit more readable than the miniature. So I'm a little bit stuck. I've tried some oranges, I've tried some yellows, but I haven't found the perfect thing that really fits yet. I'm gonna have to still monkey around with it. Probably when my entire Kroot army is done, I'll have a bunch of different bases throughout the collection, and then I'll just, in one shot, I'll just fix all the bases to whatever I find that actually works out and looks really, really nice with these guys. Got the epic basing plants on there. I got so much cork available at EonsOfBattle.com on these bases. The Kroot are really, really fun. I've always liked the Kroot, and they're, what are they called, the world ships? They have intergalactic spaceships that are spheres. They're Death Stars, and they roll around in Death Stars going from planet to planet. And I just love the idea that these Kroot, who carry break open single shot rifles, they're not that good in close combat, and they're definitely not that good at ranged combat, but they can still kind of hold their own. It doesn't make sense, but they can hold their own in games of 40k. I bought the White Dwarf that talks all about the Kroot and their lore and has their campaign rules. And there were some really interesting stories about the Kroot kind of sneakily following a bunch of Sisters of Battle, as like the Sisters don't even know that they're there. I think they were fighting just the generic Tau, and then the Kroot are just watching from a distance, and they're communicating by recreating bird calls. And so that's how they're communicating, but the Sisters don't know because they just hear bird song. And so eventually the Kroot emerge from the trees and absolutely wreck the Sisters of Battle. The Kroot, there's something to them. They are really, really interesting. And I got some new models and I got some very, very old models, but I wish I could get some more old models. I mean, I have old Kroot, like just the old plastic kit for the Kroot Carnivores, which is pretty solid even compared to the new Kroot Carnivores, but there's not a lot of really nice old Kroot stuff. There's some really cool stuff from Forge World. I remember back in like 2011, there was the great Narlock and the Narlock Riders, which were so incredibly cool. Sometimes when I play Dawn of War, I just gotta play Tau and I got to bring out the great Narlock, because man, that thing can take a punch. It is one of the most powerful like endgame units in the game. It's so much fun. Doesn't currently have rules. I guess it has legend rules, but I haven't really looked at the legend rules. I don't know exactly what it does, but I'm sure it's great because it's now discontinued and not available in the game anymore. Another question that I have to answer for my Kroot army is what to do about anti-tank. Krootsies can't really deal with tanks. The best I can do is I can do some Krootox Rampagers who do devastating wounds on the charge, and that can do a little something, but it's not really gonna be popping tanks like nobody's business. And so I'm gonna bring some actual Tau units. I have one squad of Tau suits. What do they call their suits? The Crisis Suit teams. I've got the Sun Fury, or the Sun Forged, the Melt-A-Gun version, and those are pretty good at popping some tanks. But then I want some dedicated long-range anti-tank, and I kind of have two options when it comes to the Tau. I've got the Broadside Battle Suit, which is a giant monster of metal, and then I have the Hammerhead Gunship. Now, the Broadside has better shooting, more shots, a little bit more lethal, but it's very, very slow, and so it's a little bit easier for my opponent to just stay away or stay out of line of sight of them. Where the Hammerhead Gunship, it's got, you know, one railgun shot apiece, and I could take about 2 in my list, and they could definitely get the firing angles because they have good movement, but they don't they get one shot each. It's gonna be really, really tough to actually get them to do what I need them to do. So any Tau players out there, I'm really debating like, what do I bring for my anti-tank? Do I just go with the broadside because they're cool giant robots? Or do I go with the hammerhead gunship and just assume that that railgun is gonna hit more often than it's not? I do have some stealth suit teams, and so I'm gonna be able to marker light things, and so that'll bump me up from hitting on 4s to hitting on 3s. You know, maybe that'll do a little something to help me blow up Sean's tanks, but I don't know exactly what road to go down yet. My list as it exists on a PDF online right now is exactly 2,000 points, and it includes the broadsides, but I feel like I could be very easily persuaded into the hammerhead gunships. I mean, I could just play it and see what happens and then make my decision, but I would rather spend the countless hours actually perfectly building and painting all of these things before I try them out, because that seems very prudent. 60 more points added to my Tau collection, my Kroot Tau collection. I think that brings me up to nearly 1,000 points in game, which is a little bit. The real thing that I've been putting off is I need 80 more Kroot carnivores. And I've put together 20, but I do need 80 more for the list that I want to run, and it's gonna be a slog. It's, the first 10 were fun, and then the second 10 were okay, and then, 30, 40, 50, 60. It's gonna be a project, but eventually I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet. I've got literally a tower of sprues, because I own them all. I just need to find the time to put them together and get them all painted up. And then I have to paint up all of the other things that are in my Kroot army, like Vespid. I got some Vespid sting wings that I worked on recently. Some brand new models from Games Workshop. I can report the mold lines were pretty bad, which is unusual for a brand new Games Workshop kit. Usually they've been getting better and better and better at mold lines. And I always thought that mold lines developed with age. And so a lot of the older kits, after some thousands of presses from the steel molds, the edges start to wear, and that's how you get like those sharp lines, the sprue, like the seam lines in between your pieces of model. But these ones are brand spanking new, and I had to do a lot of sanding and scraping to get them just right. But the models are gorgeous. They're really, really cool. But you know what else is really, really cool? Some even newer models, new this month. Corvus Belli Infinity has been cranking out new models for their sci-fi game Infinity. I have my Pan Oceania, and I also have a little bit of Hak Islam, which is another one of their factions. I got some bikes, and I might get some more bikes. And I've heard rumblings from some other people that vehicles are getting a little bit better in Infinity because they're moving on to a new edition. And so I'm really hoping that the bikes are good, because I like the idea of a very literal biker gang. That sounds like a lot of fun. Very different from my Pan Oceania, which is a very classic collection of just like elite operative dudes. And so, I get the elite operative dudes out of the way, then I can move on to just the ragtag group of biker guys. Infinity has been coming out with some new minis, and for this month, they are working on the Combined Army. Combined Army faction in Infinity is the Alien faction. Infinity, well, they have a bunch of different factions, but the way the game is kind of broken, the Combined Army faction is aliens. And so there's the human sphere, which is everything else in Infinity, that is under the control, or not the control, but is under the purview of Aleph, their AI. This is an artificial intelligence that kind of controls their society. It runs their money, it runs their commerce, it takes care of all humans' basic needs. Everyone is kind of just on board with it, except for the nomads. And so it's just kind of chilling. Now, the Combined Army uses the EI, the Involved Intelligence, or the humans call it the Evolved Intelligence, but they call it they call it the Evolved Intelligence, and then the humans call it extraterrestrial intelligence, which makes a lot of sense because it is literally an alien, like, abomination intelligence. But what's kind of interesting is we've got the Combined Army is a combination of different alien species all working under the control of the EI. But we've got an AI on one side and we got an AI on the other that are locked in continuous conflict. Really, none of the other big players in Infinity are dealing with the combined army. Like not Yujing, the China faction, or the Pan-Oceania, which is a bunch of the other countries all combined. Like they're all kind of warring and trying to mess around with each other. But Aleph, the intelligence running their society, is really like keeping up on battling the EI, the alien intelligence, or the extraterrestrial intelligence. And so it's just kind of interesting that the humans are kind of kept safe by their artificial intelligence from another artificial intelligence. These, the combined army, are some of the coolest and most unique miniatures in Infinity because they're alien, but they're a little bit Tau-y in that they have a bunch of different aliens all working together for the greater good of their intelligence. And so they have this really interesting design philosophy where they kind of have like a Space Marine synth suit or body glove, where they have like this muscular, skin-tight weave all over their miniatures that just adds extra layers of protection and muscle and power to each individual character. And a lot of these characters are humans. They're filthy traitors. The Next Wave action pack includes 10 miniatures for the combined army, and it's got the little cyber velociraptor, which is a model that I'm very familiar with. It is a neat little guy with a shoulder-mounted machine gun, and then a whole gaggle of really fun combined army guys. The red and the blue with like the light gray armor. It is a color scheme that really works nicely. I really like the way that they do the bases, where they take that highlight color of light blue and then they put that onto the base as like another pop of that highlight color. They do a really good job with their box art paint schemes. This box would be a really good way to get started with the combined army faction. And then if you wanted to upgrade your combined army faction, there is the Juggernaut Armored Assault Brigade. This is a plastic resin miniature Juggernaut, which is like a panther with some shielding, some giant spikes, a whip-like scorpion tail, and it is just climbing its way down a little piece of debris. This is a very busy, very unique looking miniature that is being driven like a motorcycle, but is also a mounted beast. It is a very interesting unit. And then speaking of interesting units, the War Core pre-order exclusive. So the War Core is usually something that has not existed for the combined army, but it is essentially reporters that run around Infinity and report back on what is happening in the world. But now there is one, this exclusive miniature for the combined army. It is a spooky looking fella with robo feet. This guy is really interesting. I do like the robo feet. And then he's just got like a stick, a classic Star Wars-y stick. And then, what is the name of that pistol? A lot of the weapons are very consolidated in Infinity. So like Pano, Yujing, Nomad, they all use the same machine guns, submachine guns, light machine guns, grenade launchers. But Combined Army has a completely different roster of weapons that are completely unique to them because they're the alien faction. And he's got one of those. Their weapons systems look really interesting. And I've been saying that the color schemes are a banger for the Combined Army. The Infinity Combined Army paint set, Harbinger Paramedic exclusive. This is a collection of paints that are designed to help you achieve the box art of the Combined Army. And all of these paint sets have come with a medic, which is a really good get for any faction. Medics are very important because it is very easy for Infinity models to be downed or out of action. And they've all been pretty good. I like this guy and his little mohawk. He's a medic, but you don't see a lot of doctory stuff going on with this model. He's got a knife in a little ankle holster. I think that's a medical pistol because it's got like a little vial on the back of it. So maybe he can shoot people back to good health. I guess that would make some sense. Maybe he can thinking like a Dark Eldar, maybe he literally shoots them with a vial of like painkiller and then that gets them back in the fight. But it is a really nice little miniature. There's too many games, too little time. My Pan-Oceania is looking good. I have some more What is the name of the generic? The Fusiliers! I've got a bunch of Fusiliers on my desk right now that I need to paint up. Then I'll have 6 Fusiliers, which is probably all of them that I'll ever need. And then I can start to work on the really, really juicy stuff. There is a tag, which is the name of the big armored vehicles that they have, or the big armored suits that they have. And there is a giant suit for the Pan-Oceania, which is holding dual submachine guns, but they're full-size machine guns, but in the hands of a giant robot, they look like submachine guns. I really want that model. Some really cool stuff coming in the world of Infinity. I got some good work done on my 40k armies, not as good work done on my Infinity armies, almost no work done on my Age of Sigmar armies, nothing on my Quar. There's so much. I've got so many projects going right now, but I'm excited for the Kroot. I've got some new models to play with for my Dark Eldar and my Black Templar. Ooh, I actually do have some new models for my Black Templar that you guys will see very soon. I gotta work on those a little bit more today. Thanks for watching.